Right folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the wild landscape of Scotland. And today we've ventured once again into the wild lands of Glenila. And just check this out folks, this is actually the edge of Mount Blair here. I've just left the wee Kia sitting down at the car park where the Glenila Highland Games Hawk is located. And I'm just heading up this hill because from the roadside a couple of weeks ago I noticed what looks like a cave on the side of this extreme cliff hilltop environment. This is a crazy big mountain here which lies at the side of Glenila, and it's called Mount Blair. And I've not been up here since I was really young. I remember one year we came up to roll our Easter eggs on this hill. But like apart from that, I've never walked up here, but I've always wanted to. The only trouble with today's adventure, it's actually raining right now, so we'll just see how this goes. The cliff where the cave looks like it's located, it's actually like quite high up this hill, so I'm not sure how this adventure's about to go. This is just a wild hill environment. It's like moss on top of these wild like hill stones. I keep slipping. But this is what these adventures are all about, folks. This is like mad cliffs, and then all these chunks of stone must have like snapped off and rolled down the hill. And then look over the valley here, you can see the hazy mist because it's so rainy and wet today. But I just thought I still wanted to go out on an adventure. No matter what the weather is, it's still cool to get out and about. And hopefully I can stay kind of semi-dry. I'll maybe just try and stick under these trees a bit. Look at this folks, for a scene of natural beauty. The way the moss is all over these trees and on these cliffs. And I just saw a little mouse or a rodent of some sort running under that bush. So it just shows it's wildlife here. Like crazy wildlife, and they're not even expecting really to see humans away up here. It's probably very rare there's anything apart from sheep walking on these hills. This is so cool folks, it's just a maze of like stones and wild hill grass and ferns. And then you get that moss just kind of covering everything. Just check it out folks, it's like a wonderland. There's so many crazy little spots like this in Scotland, they're so fun to explore. Certain times of year it gets more difficult in the summer. Wow, look at this cliff. It's just so steep. Wild, like rugged hill stones up here. And there's less coverage of trees on this part of the hill. But I think the cave's kind of around this way. There's tons of bits up here look like caves and stuff as well. It's so interesting to explore places like that you've never been before. Even though I've been in Glenila plenty of times, I've just never seen this piece of land up close, and it's just incredible. So I always promise you the realest of adventures on this channel folks, and just check this out. Once again, it's an incredible landscape. And I think if it wasn't so cloudy and misty, we would have such an incredible view in this direction as well. I'm just making my way along this hill because I can see there's a dike line, and I'm sure that goes up. So the cliff is potentially there, which has got the cave in it. Look at that folks, you probably didn't hardly see it on the camera, but there's a deer taking off across there. It was right beside me at a single point there, and it just took off running. Oh, there's another one. It's always incredible the wildlife and nature that I see when I'm on these adventures. I've already seen that strange little rodent disappearing into the bushes, and now we've seen these deer. Even though the cave's over there, I'm actually heading up just to have a look on the brow of this hill. Wow folks, this place is wild and desolate. When I saw these stones I thought it looked like something had maybe been built here, but then on a hill like this you just can't really tell because there's so much natural stone. But this is almost like a level little plain up here, and look at this. For sure folks, there's been a little building here at one time. Look at this, that the outer remains of it. See that mark on the ground right there? So that's so interesting to think of that on this plinth of land up above the land of Glenila here. There's been a little building or a room here, maybe even a shed or something for livestock. And then look at that, that's that incredible natural quartz that you get here in the ground. It's got like a lot of flint and stuff in it. Wow, this is wild, folks. I'm just going to have a wee look over here. This is the exploring instinct, folks. I noticed that one little outline of a building. I was just thinking that's maybe at the edge of like a settlement which had been in this area. It's almost like tracks though going up onto this hill here. Most big hills in Scotland used to have forts and stuff like that built on top of them, and they were just all over the place. But an interesting thing with the old folklore of Glenila here, they used to have stories about giants which lived up Mount Blair. So it's crazy to be on a hill which has got so much history written about it and stuff like that. The people used to fear the giants of Mount Blair, and apparently he threw a stone, a massive boulder, over towards the miller who was at the mill, but he missed. And that large stone which stands at the roadside, they always call that the giant stone or the miller's stone for that reason. This is incredible. I never even knew that I would be on a wild hilltop like this today, folks. Sometimes when it's raining you would think, oh, I'm just going to have to stay at home, and then see when you actually come out to a place like this, I'm not even actually too wet, to be honest, and it's not really windy at all. Look at these stones, folks. They've broken completely flat and smooth here, and it's crazy to see that. They've obviously tumbled down the hill. It's maybe a wee shelter for a fox or whatever nowadays. This is such a cool bit of rock here, because this is like a viewing point to look over the incredible land of Glenila. And down in the hollow I can see Forter Castle, which dates back to ancient times, to like the castles we've seen recently on the videos, like Finhaven Castle and stuff. But the cool thing with Forter Castle is that it's been fully restored back to its former glory. And like from atop of a hill like this, seeing it in the misty glen with the clouds rolling over its rooftops down there, it just looks so cool. And you can imagine the landscape's maybe no changed a lot since the days the castle was in its prime. Yeah, normally there's an incredible view over the other hills and stuff, but we're pretty much at cloud height on this adventure. And Mount Blair itself is absolutely massive. We're only not even a quarter of the way up it right now for this adventure. Wow, it's so cool to see like the vastness and the wildness of this, with the rough stone there and the mega cliff faces. When Scotland went through its glaciation period, often places like Mount Blair were so high that they actually stuck above the ice, and that's how they've still got wild rocky formations instead of being like smoothed off normal hills. Check this out, folks. This is the area that I was trying to get to. It's so incredible. This is where it looks like there was potentially a cave somewhere in one of these cliffs. Wow, the ground's so wild here. I can see big chunks of stone down there which must have broken off and like rolled down the hill at a certain time. I need to have a proper look at this from lower down and do a safety analysis before I go climbing about on here. Wow, the landscape here is just so mega. These cliffs and stuff, the way it's shaped and formed, like, when you're standing in the middle of this on a stormy day like today, it's just crazy to see. Often on a wet, kind of rainy day, the colours of the land is so much more vivid. The moss on the rocks just look incredible with the orange ferns between it. Yeah, check the size of this huge rock right here, folks. You can just imagine this tumbling down the hill. Yeah, it looks like the thing I was thinking was a cave from a distance there is actually just some trees. It's mad how the dry stone dike's been built along here right up the steepest, most wild part of this hill. Yeah, this is crazy to see. Can think of the thousands of years it's passed, and that's how there's so many stones lying here. And the cliff will just be gradually like changing shape. Wow, can you believe the size of this individual chunk of rock here? And look, it's got mad seams through it like you see in a lot of the rocks here. Wow. And it's just covered in that mossy stuff which has grown and grown over the years. Yeah, I was wanting to climb up and go in the cave, folks, but it looks like it's literally just these bushes up here, and the way it's shaped from a distance it looks like a cave. But I'm going to go up to the higher level, I think, and check it out, because it's a double staged cliff here, and it looked like there was potential for cliffs, for caves at two heights. Because I was looking at it from miles away when I drove up the road. I just thought that just looked so incredible up there. So I think in the summer this is the kind of spot I'll come back to for sure, because there's some cool bits here we could climb. If the rocks were dry, it would be quite good fun climbing about and climbing up some of these hills. Check it out, folks, we're totally mountaineering in this adventure. Like, the rocks are so incredible. Look at the way the water just runs down them. They'd be super slippy today if you tried to climb them for sure. But I'm just hoping I can spot a little route up. This is maybe my route here up to the next level. Look at these wild mountain flowers as well here. How incredible is that, folks? A little bit of colour here just growing out on the hill. And I'm going to try and scale this crazy hill. Wellies is probably not the best thing to be wearing in this situation for sure. If anybody comes up here as well, I wouldn't advise coming up this route. Check it out, it's like a chute. It's proper slick and it's proper slippy here. If that moss decided to give way, there's nothing you could do. This is so extreme here, folks. Yes, we've made it. We've made it. We're still halfway up the hill here, but it's safer. That was the steepest bit back there for sure. Wow, adventures like this are just crazy. It blows my mind to think there's like that little outline of a building, and it's crazy to think about maybe a wee settlement here, or a wee family that had a little croft or a farm on the side of this vast mountain. It just blows my mind. You can just imagine it there with the chimney smoking on the cold winter's night. And probably if you stood at the door of the house and listened, it would be the same as you hear now. That peace and quiet with just the birds singing and the River Isla at the bottom of the hill. So the danger level's just gone up here, folks, because we're now at the top of that massive cliff area, which we were at the bottom of a minute ago. Yeah, this is so cool. Obviously I'm not wanting to go too near the edge, but it almost looked to me like there was a secondary cave down at these extreme rocks here. Wow, it's the sort of thing, if you did slip off down that hill, it'd be hard to stop yourself. Whoa, look at this here. It's not quite a cave, but check how precarious this rock is that's hanging here. It's probably been there for years and years, and it'll be a little shelter now for the sheep or whatever. Oh look, there's a mad little spider hanging on there. The underside of that rock there. It's like an orange and white spotted spider. Whoa, it's moving about. It's going away. It doesn't want to be on video, folks. It just shows the wild nature you get out here. Brightly coloured spiders. Yeah, it's so cool to see this. I'm always in awe at the mad geology in Scotland. Just check that out, there's loads of wee holes and stuff just leading on in under this hill. And from the magnitude of this cliff, I can see why it looked like a cave from the distance. I was away down there on the road looking up, and I just thought, is it worth going for a look? But then when I go into this mad landscape, of course it's worth it, folks, because it's just incredible once you're out and about. And you get to see so much. It's like, it's not even raining anymore at this moment, so it's so cool. And right now we're at the top of this massive cliff, so I'm being careful at this moment. Yeah, look at it there. The sheep actually walk right down to the edge, because I can see where they've worn the grass. And all these other stones, they're just balancing there. They could probably topple down at any moment. And that'll be how we've seen so many of those big stones at the bottom of the hill. Wow, it's crazy often going on like a cave hunting adventure like that. But like often the landscape itself can just be so mind-blowing. And then the wee nuggets of history that's in the middle of all that wildness. You would think, kind of coming high on a hill or whatever, you would see no evidence of a settlement. But then there you go, there's like wee houses and stuff from a time so long ago that nobody even knew whose house it probably is or was. I'm gassed walking up this hill, folks. It's crazy vlogging often if you're like walking up hills or over mountains, because you get so gassed out. You can't often get your sentences together. I'm going to head a wee bit further up and round, because I think it looks like there's an easier track that maybe takes me back around that way. And then I think I'll explore a bit further over the other side. Yeah, the hills are kind of coming more into view in the distance now. The clouds are almost lifting, but there's a real kind of humidity today in the air, and that's maybe how it's so foggy and misty. And look, the Drystone Dyke is up here. Just think about them building this up on the wild hill, day and night, miles and miles, right over Mount Blair. One day they would have been building at the bottom of the cliff, the next day they were up here. Yeah, this is right at the edge of the cliff, and there's like fencing at one time been there. It looks like bits of it's even fallen down over the years. And then look at that. The Drystone Dyke just disappears up into the clouds. And that's not even the highest bit of the mountain up there. This is just vast. It's vast, unforgiving hill environment. And often you can have wet holes and boggy areas, and you could disappear. You could disappear away down a hole between some of those big stones. So you always have to be super vigilant and really careful. Sometimes it's amazing in Scotland just to have that peace and quiet to yourself. It's like the solitude, being on top of the hill where no one goes. No one's probably walked this path for a long time, unless it was the shepherd maybe, or the farmer. Maybe a gamekeeper or a shooter. But apart from that, it's just unseen, untamed wilderness. And the rocks is just there, and then all the wildlife in between it. It's just mad. And I was just going a wee bit higher up here to see what is up at this area. I'm still thinking about that little building down there and imagining if there had been a wee settlement, if there had been more buildings maybe higher up here on the hill somewhere. So I'm guessing the shepherd doesn't even come up here very often, because I can see the remains of a dead sheep here. It's maybe died and then pretty much got eaten by foxes and stuff like that. Because there's a lot of foxes and animals like that out here in nature. Wow, there's two geese. Twa gooses flying in there. That's quite a high height they're at, but because we are so high on the hill here, they were coming in low level, and I had to take a minute to think what type of bird I was even seeing there, because it looked so strange, the colours on them. But I believe they were Canadian geese. Yeah, see the thing, it looks like there's been an old track or something around the edge of there, but then sometimes the rocks can have a natural looking bit like that on them, and it just looks like there's been human civilization trying to like build something. But as I walk these lands and take it all in, I'm always imagining how it may have looked years ago, like 1,000 years ago. What did the land look like here and stuff? And it was probably pretty similar. But like the further back you go, it was probably like wild forest and stuff here. And then at the time of the Ice Age and stuff, it must have just been a barren wasteland, wild and unforgiving and freezing cold. Just check out this slippy rock formation that I've got to climb down right now. It's parkour, folks. Nature parkour out here. You just get faced with all sort of obstacles on your walk. And there is that drizzly rain kind of coming back on now. You can often tell how heavy the rain is by how far you can see in the distance. And now I can see that it's even hazy now in front of this hill down here. So check it out, folks. This is the highest point I'm going to come to today on this hill. I came up to this plinth of land and I'm now up in the clouds. We're at cloud height literally, which is crazy to see when you look around. But like this mountain just keeps on going and going. It doesn't matter what direction you go. It's just wild terrain. And yeah, we've seen quite a lot. Now I need to navigate my way down here kind of safely. And I noticed what looked like potentially another cave when I was heading up the hill. So I'm going to head round the other side of that steep bit there where the potential of like the wee house and stuff's been. I'm going to go around the other side of that and have a proper look. It's mad to think though, that's been a wee area at one time for like what's been a house or a wee agricultural area. And it makes sense because it's quite a level piece on the hill here. And it looks like even they might have moved some of the stones from there because there's just stones like everywhere on this hill apart from the area around that stone remains of the building. So it's cool to see that and theorise the history of the glen, because a house outline like that will date back way into history, maybe like the year 700 or before it. And that could have even been like year 0 that was getting made or lived in. Because this land's obviously been lived upon for absolute years. Just check it out here, folks. I just can't believe it every time I look around. It's like mad. The distances involved that you're witnessing here, it's just incredible. And a cool thing, I used to actually live at the little house at the other side of this glen. There's a little white house over there. And that used to be where I lived when I was little. And just think, this is the hill here. I used to look out from my bedroom window or whatever and see this hill. And now I'm walking about on it years later, and who would have known? Check that out, folks. It's a slug. That's the kind of slugs you get around here, natural in the land of Scotland. You see them everywhere you go, from the high up lands here to the low down lands to the sea. You just see these black things all over the place, like. So there must be a powerful species of slug, but I didn't really know a lot about slugs apart from I see them all over the place and they're that pure like jet black colour. Quite crazy beasts. Wow, this hill's vast. I can see the main road down there. It doesn't look far away, but it's so low down compared to the height I'm at right now. This has been so cool to see this. For a while I've always wanted to come up here, but I didn't even know there was like potential of a cave until I was coming along there and I just looked over and I could see like that dark void. But as it turns out, it must have been the way the trees and the rocks is shaped there. It looks like the dark opening into the underworld. And because of some of the caves we've found on other mountains, like I thought it's definitely worth going for a wee adventure just to see. And it just shows, regardless of the weather, if it's raining or whatever, it's still worth going out and about. Because I'm no wet, even though it's been drizzling and stuff like that. It's no that sort of rain that really like soaks you at all. To the person in the comments that said it's always sunny when I'm exploring. It's always sunny in my area, they said, but look, it's not. Because here we are in the middle of a heavy rainstorm. I was just literally getting a couple of time lapses that I'll put at the end of the video, and this rainstorm's just moved in thick. You can see how heavy it is now. And I'm literally away to make my way. Look, we're at the top of a massive cliff here, folks. I'm going to make my way around the edge of here because there could be potential for a cave on the face of this cliff as well. Anyway, I need to dry the lens once again. I'll get back to you. But here we are in the middle of a rainstorm, folks. It's crazy. The land's always got a different perspective. Like I say, on a stormy day, everything looks so different. So here we are, folks. We're making our way down this incredibly steep terrain here, and it's just mad. Sometimes these adventures, like, I end up just in the middle of nowhere in crazy terrains, like, and it just blows my mind off. And I'm so glad I put the wellies on for this adventure. But you can see the steepness of that slope right there. When I came in, I must have walked around that kind of direction, that there. Check it out, folks. Because of this rock face here and it's so steep, I'm actually just taking a safe route. I was going to go along there and try and find that hidden cave, but it's just mad off and try to navigate because it's just like that heathery kind of rubble there, and see if you start slipping you could be straight down. It's almost like a sheer cliff face right here. I'm really wanting to make my way along that way though, I would say, even though I could probably easily go that direction. Here we go, folks. I started this clip by saying I wasn't wanting to try and make my way along here, and then boom, next thing I'm going this direction. Look at this, folks, all this lichen on this tree here. It's just mad. It's just overtaken here by the moisture on the hillside. Probably most times of the year the sun doesn't shine down here often, so trees like that get overtaken by moss and all that other types of licheny stuff. Wow, it's this mad hilly terrain here. I was just keeping my eyes peeled to see if there was a cave. When I walked in, I came along the bottom of that hill there, and I was just kind of looking up this direction, but I didn't want to commit to like a big hill climb early on in the adventure because I was really wanting to check out the cave, which I thought was at the other side of the hill. Wow, look at all this rubble. It's just a madness to think it's all rolled down this hill. This is the kind of bit I was saying, you could disappear away down a hole, like between stones or whatever. Because the size of some of these stones, like, it's just mad. See, another thing, folks, if water is running off a hill like this for years, it can often undercut below the stones. So if you do fall down a hole, it can be super deep from the water channeling it out. Yeah, I can see this could be the bit here, which is the cliff. It looks super overgrown. Wow, check this out, folks. We're right on the side of this mad hill. It's just crazy to me, like landscapes like this, when you're exploring them. You come around the corner and it's just such a madness. The way the cliffs are just so sheer. And just look at the way it is here. It's just mad to see. It's like a fox has been down here eating its tea. Yeah, often I say the same words a lot, like mad or crazy, but sometimes when you're just taking this all in, it's just mind-blowing. You're lost for words often. And when there's so much cool stuff, one thing after another, it's just amazing. Words can't describe it, folks. Look at the way these stones have come down and they're just balanced. Every year, like, this place could change depending on the movement of the stones. Just check this out here, the way the moss and stuff is. That's sphagnum moss right there. And then there's just tons of different types of moss the whole way up there. It's an incredible natural habitat. And then even the trees here, they just look like they're made of 100% moss. It's so interesting to see. Look at that, folks. It's almost like a moss tree. This is the kind of wild landscape that I love bringing on the channel, as well as abandoned history. It's crazy landscapes and wildernesses. And this must have been what I was looking at, thinking it looked like a cave from a distance. That can often happen on these adventures. You're looking at things from such a long distance away or whatever. They're hard to navigate to. And sometimes cliffs and stuff can look like caves. You can see this tree is just like peeled away from the embankment. Wow, look at it. It isn't quite a cave, but it's almost. And this is what I was seeing from a distance, folks. I love adventures like this. Like, I've said it already on the video, but Scotland's just so crazy when you see it. It's just like a postcard scene at all angles. And just look at the way the rocks is like breaking off here. And it's so cool to come and explore places like this. And we did find one bit of history, which was the outline of that ancient wall, which looks like it's been a tiny little house or croft of its era. And just think how long ago it is. I can see the main road down there. The Glenila Games Hawk, where I'm parked, just literally down there. And this is a cool little plinth here. Wow, look at that, eh? The way the stuff's just like growing above my head. I'm almost sheltered here from the rain, but the water's still dripping off the stones in the tree here. Wow, I'm just mind blown. I was just taking a second here to take it all in. And it's cool I can share adventures like this with people all over the world. They can see how a little corner like wild Scotland looks. Right now we're on the edge of Mount Blair, which is in the county of Perth and Kinross, I believe. It kind of borders Angus at the other side here, and it's just a mad wild landscape where at one time I lived at the far side of. And it's so cool thinking back to that time. I used to look out over Mount Blair, the wildness and the vastness of it. It's been so cool to document on today's video. And it's just a piece of land that I had never ever explored, like on foot, just seeing what was there. And there's been so many cool wee corners like this to see. The adventure was totally worth it. Whoa, I'm ducking under the trees. You get the water down your neck if you brush the tree branch with your hood or whatever. Yes folks, we've nearly made it down this hill, off this crazy wilderness. And I can see the little Kia sitting at the bottom of the hill. Obviously, if anybody comes to landscapes like this, they have to be wary of the terrain, but also respectful of the landowner, the farmer or the shepherd that's managing this land. Some days there would even be like shooting and stuff going on hills like that for sure. But today we've gotten lucky. It has rained, but I'm still... Whoa! That was close, folks. That's what I mean, if anybody comes here, they have to be prepared. I slipped on this rock and I bailed out onto this one, but look at that. I only had one option to bail out here. If this had failed, then I would have been into survival there to stop myself free falling. But that's the risk, like I've said before in the video, with mossy rocks. If the moss gives way and starts to move, look at this. It's actually flowering there. That's like the flowers there on the moss by the looks of things. Or the licheny kind of stuff, that's what it is. Sometimes if you look up close at like a hill rock or a piece of land, it's almost like going to the Great Barrier Reef and seeing the coral and the wild beasts. Sometimes above the sea is just as interesting as below it for stuff like that. It's like once you look a little bit closely, like a little bit closer, there's so much more going on than you could ever imagine. Right folks, that's me back at the car, so I'm going to end this one here. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll catch you very soon for the next adventure, wherever I end up going.